And if I could start with Eva to go around for a roll call.
Eva Boyce?
Coram Hallowell, City of Portsmouth.
Steve Puzzle.
Michael Griffin.
Sue Polidoro.
Peter Spine.
Celeste Brooks.
Susan Sterry.
And Dee Forte.
Yay, we're all here. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes? They were quite lengthy. So I didn't realize we talked that much last time.
I did read the minutes, and there's something that I'm not sure it's a correction. It's probably a clarification because I probably didn't explain it well. Because Barbara does a really good job with the minutes, and maybe so I just wanted to say that what should be there, and maybe, as I said, I didn't make it clear, is that the New Hampshire Charitable Trust Foundation wants us to use the city information when we apply for a grant. In the minutes, it says that other organizations have their own foundations and want to use the city information. That isn't the way it should be.
Okay.
They all do have their foundations. You know, like I've looked at Lanza a lot. They're taking up a lot of our territory. We ought to see what they would like to do for us, but they do have them. But it's the New Hampshire Charitable Trust Foundation that wants to use the city's EIN numbers and things like that.
Okay, well, she'll hear it, but she did ask me about if there were any changes to let her
Okay.
know.
It's not the world's worst thing, and I probably misspoke.
Is that the trust under the Attorney General's office?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. Any other? I read it and said, I said that? All right, who would like to make a motion on the
I'll
accepting the
move
minutes?
to accept the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we can move on. New projects. We only have one, and I'm gonna, Corin can confirm that when we'll start. The city did receive the $2,500 from Tom Balon, who is building one of the huge buildings right on the railroad track, and he stipulated it be used to tear down the chain link fence that's parallel to the railroad tracks because the back of his building overlooks, and he wants to make it nice for his tenants. So Suzanne had said to us, Corin and I, that, if the money's accepted, we could start the next day, but literally we have to check with Suzanne. And when Corin and I spoke, we thought maybe it might be done like in October or November when I can't remember what crew that's busy doing something else right now will be done, and they can go in and start that project. So,
Probably November. We have to get through leaf season.
right.
Unless paving is done with it really depends on weather. They can only crack seal to a certain temperature. So when they free up from that, I can probably work with Toby on getting his crew over there.
Oh, the ones that are putting all the black stuff all over town?
Yeah, it all depends on when the plant closes for asphalt and things like that. But that's
Right.
usually sometime beginning of November.
Right. And have you had a chance to talk to Suzanne about it?
Nope.
No.
I'll have to shoot her an email just to get the 100% thumbs
Right.
up, green light on that.
But we're pretty confident. She wouldn't say, she's not flip about things, so.
She pretty much, but I'll just triple check it before
Right.
we dive in.
Yeah, because she said, we'll approve the money on Monday, and you guys can start Tuesday.
Yeah,
So
I
she
think we're
wouldn't say
good, but
something like that.
I'll make sure before we start.
So, and the first step in that project is obviously getting that down, and then after that, this winter, we can figure out what's left there that, the trees and things, and what else we might want to plant
Yep.
down
Maybe we
through
get the
the.
fence out, clean it up, prune the trees, and take any dead trees out and see see how it looks.
That'll look great.
I think that's going to look really nice.
Yeah, exactly. So we're all set. That's the only new project that I know of, right?
Yep.
I can't think of anything else. Fundraising, flatbread.
So one of the requirements for Flatbread is that we have to have a database to send out our information to. So we're kind of stuck there as to what we can do. I don't know if we want to start making a database and of, where we can send out emails to people and collect, who might want to be interested in receiving updates on what we do.
Oh,
So they require you to have a database?
They want you to send out like email blasts, not me personally, but the organization. They want to send out email blasts to the people that would be coming to your potential fundraiser. So a lot of it is self-promotion.
I wonder if the official Facebook page could announce the cemetery committee's doing a fundraising, and that would probably count, right? I would think.
yeah.
I can call and verify and see if that would be an acceptable, because there's definitely social media aspects where they want you to use your social media to
Yeah.
advertise it, and we can use the
And also,
official.
they could put it on the city website,
Yeah.
upcoming event kind of a thing. I would imagine that would be fine.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. I haven't talked to Stephanie, but, they prepare it every week, the newsletter that goes out. I don't know how many, but it's like
Yeah.
a database. It goes out to a lot of people.
mean, this is
So
a
if we can
municipal-
substitute that in. And it is email. You get it by email.
Yeah, it goes out to all the
yeah.
residents,
So the newsletter goes out by email.
to anybody who's
Yeah.
signed up, and
Yeah,
then
I get it.
the website, the city webpage is public, and then there's the Facebook page that,
Yeah.
I don't know how many followers.
And I'm happy to post on the unofficial page too,
And-
because that gets a lot of traction.
Yeah, let me,
And see if that we can use that, and then if we can, I can
That will
I can
be
get in touch and see if that would be an acceptable way to send out email. But so banner, you said we have approval to make one.
Yeah, I just need to know how big we want it and what you want it to say.
Yep.
And then we can get that done. And then as far as working with Stephanie for any sort of press release, kind of same, just a quick write-up on what we're doing and when, and then she can turn that into an announcement, post all that.
One of the things on the banner says that they want it painted, but I'm sure I could add a little bit of embellishment to a printed banner.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and on that, I was thinking too, if it's generic enough about Portsmouth Historical Cemetery and all that, that if we could put something that we could take off and we could use it for other, or make it so we could use it other places too,
Right. Maybe it just
besides,
says Portsmouth Historical Cemetery Committee or something.
come join us. That would be appropriate for everybody, everything, yeah.
Or like an additional, like we leave it generic and then we add something to it that says, if they want the date or whatever of our certain
Right.
night.
You could paint that on.
Yeah.
Some smiley faces.
But yeah, so that's the next step, but
And I'll get in touch with Monty tomorrow so you can get on. Did they give you any idea how far out they've already booked or anything?
no, so one part of it is that they either want like a couple dates that we had in mind or a general time of year that we would request. There's no guarantee that you get that, but if we have a thought on the best time of year or a date that we're like, this would be really great, they fall on Tuesdays, generally.
On Tuesday's the night, one of their slow nights. I mean, Tuesday,
Is this something that's like next year or is it this year?
For 2025.
I was gonna say Halloween would be great.
Oh, well,
Cemetery.
Somebody else
the
was-
Portsmouth Halloween Parade already has a flatbread night, so
Yeah, oh, yeah,
that's
sure they
actually
do.
on. If you guys want to support the Halloween parade, it is the 22nd.
Or sometime in the autumn.
Yeah, some
yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see what.
cemetery
So if
season.
if I said September, would be a good time. We're rolling into fall in September.
Are we talking? I thought we were going to try to do it like this coming season, or are they already booked?
So all the applications are for 2025.
Oh, okay.
Because
Yeah.
2024 was already.
Booked up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So everything that's going on, any applications going in are for 2025.
Yeah, I would say in the fall, sometime in September or October, when the weather's still nice and people can get out, and we don't have to worry about snowstorms.
And I can touch base again on this next month when we
Yeah.
gone forward with?
Yeah, and
those
I'll
items?
find out from Monty. Hopefully
You can CC me on that if you want.
Yeah.
That way he can just message
Yeah.
me directly if need be.
Okay. So that's a yellow fever project. Sue Polder and I went down. They were here on a Friday and Saturday, 4 weeks ago. We did not find any hint of yellow fever, mass grave. However, we did find a buried headstone. It wasn't engraved, but it was an old field stone, and once we got it out of the ground, it was definitely a headstone. Because a few feet underneath that, it was cool. You could see the outline of a coffin. And that's where they stopped, but it definitely wasn't a mass grave site. So, independent archaeologist,
Jessica?
Yeah, Jessica, but that was independent archaeologists who've done a lot of work for the city and in the city. She just got a brand new ground penetrating radar machine. So the second day she came down and went over the whole cemetery because she wanted to get familiar with it and everything. And she pretty much came to the conclusion and said that she would actually, if we needed it, write up that there is no space in there, even though we may see this big space and that big space and some spaces back, that there are objects underneath there. And she also went down way back, right along the edge of the cemetery, the water line, where all those little field stones are marked, where people say it's the poor cemetery. There are definitely indications that there are remains in that area. So that's nice to know, even if we don't know where the yellow fever was. They do want to come back, not this fall, but in the spring, and bring a really tiny backhoe, like big enough for one person to sit in, and it's a really tiny scoop. Because the clay is so thick and so packed down there, they were continuously saying that what would normally take 45 minutes to dig took almost all day. That was how bad. They had to use pickaxes and everything else to break up the clay to even get down. I don't even think they got down 5 feet if it was that. So,
And how far were they looking to get down?
Until they find something.
They just keep going.
yeah.
On that particular location, they found that headstone. I think it was maybe 3 feet down.
Yeah, it was. It was, the very tip of it was about at least 2 feet down. And then once they started uncovering it, because it was in the pit, I said, I bet that's a headstone. And then once they got it dug out, it was totally flat on the front, and then the back of it was just left the way it was. So, and we left it there. I mean, they put it back in. When they filled in the pit, they installed it into the ground. So it's now sitting above the ground to mark a location of that we officially know that there's a coffin underneath there. So they're going to send a final report of both testings and to the city when that's done. And they're also excited because Louise Tallman, who was, thank God for Louise, she made an alphabetical listing of all the people in North Cemetery with the date that they died and the block that they were in. So we know the dates, and then there was in another book, she actually made little maps. So if it was block D, say, and it was D6, you could figure out where D6 is in the cemetery. But then she puts all the names and another indicator like F1, F2, F3, and maps out who and where they're buried within each block. So they're going to take the information from each book, and they're going to generate a graph, and then what they're going to do is start eliminating dates and things like that, so they will actually be able to see how many people were buried there just in the 1700s, and then you can bring it up and see how many people were buried in the 1800s, but they're looking for the 1700s so that it might be able to help them figure out where the yellow fever people are. So
I think I found a headstone a couple of days ago, just looking at the dates. I took a picture of it, and I'm like, I went and I checked my list. That person died of the yellow fever. And that headstone is on the, almost bordering the Civil War cemetery. So that, my observation tells me that there's probably more than one a mass grave, and because he died like in September, towards the end of the epidemic, so my intuition tells me that there's probably more than one grave, and start on the far back end of the cemetery, because I used to be pretty close to what the old entrance to the cemetery was, so it was very convenient for a carriage carrying the
Yeah,
victims
body remains.
to go in there and take him and put him in the ground, and then just turn around and come back out. So it's probably that is a very rough kind of grave, headstone. So it tells me that it was probably brought in a hurry, just to mark the place or near the place where this person was. So
yeah,
that
did you send it to Alex?
I did send it to Alex.
good.
And I
Yeah,
said,
I'm sure he
his
was-
graves are close to that border between the Civil War cemetery and that row with all these big trees.
Yeah, between the two. Yeah.
It has to be right there, and they more than likely it's more than one.
But Alex is excited, I'm sure, to get that. So anyway, I mean, it sounds like little things, but it's important to the history of all the research these people are doing about yellow fever and whatever mathematical and scientific information they're going to get out of it. So who knows, it will help future generations. So anyway, that's where that stands. So we won't hear anything back from them until are wanting to come back into the spring.
Now, if they find a victim that could be in a crypt, in one of those table tombs with other people in there, do they have permission to go in there and?
That would be up to the state. The state gives you have to notify the state that you're doing it, and then within the city, and I don't know who that would be because we don't have our own cemetery, you would have to get permission from them, and you would have to have a really good reason to open a tomb or dig someone up or what have you. So when the time comes, I'm sure, Mark, the head archaeologist, will guide the city through what they can do and not do. Because I don't think he can just say, because he's ahead of it, that, oh yeah, we can,
Some of
that he
the,
can
some
pop
of the
up with.
victims, and I just corroborated this today, are in one of those table tombs with several other people, and they are the children, the first 3 children that died from that epidemic.
Well, yeah.
It's like, at least they're there.
Right,
You
so
don't have to
I think
dig it.
that's something, that we should get in touch with, or you should get in touch with Mark, because you have all the information, and fill him in on it and keep going with that, because you're the expert of who's who in the North Cemetery. And, well, you do, you do.
All my friends are dead. I know that.
And so, yeah, I mean, you should do all of that because you do all the research. And I mean, I never even thought about looking at the headstones and actually trying to read everyone, because who has time to do that but you? Because it's your passion. So, yeah, oh, that's good to know. Actually, really good to know. So maybe the plans will totally change in the spring, and maybe they will want to open just an area or what have you. But Mark will take the lead on that to see who, when, and where it can take place. So, okay. The Catherine Moffett Whipple dedication next time I'll bring some slides. She's buried in the Langdon tomb, and again, Sue and I were there. There were 4 other people there that represented other signers of the Declaration of Independence. So one was, she lives here in Massachusetts, but her person was John Morton of Pennsylvania, and then Josiah Bartlett, which is up the road. And I never asked the lady that conducted this whole thing, she's like a chapter head, who her person was, because it wasn't Catherine Whipple. So I have to find that out just out of curiosity. So there were 4 different, we were sort of honoring 4 different people as far as the signers of the Declaration. So it was raining that day, but it didn't bother those people. And it went well, and it looks nice. And they were really, really happy because we were the first city, and they were extremely glad that we had made an effort to put up the plaque, and we were so agreeable and everything. So it went really well. And they have about 6 more to do in the next year. So I think that's going to be the end of it. Once we get to the, I think, what did I say, November 28th, when the SAR is going to do the people that raided Fort. November 16th is when the SAR is going to do their event down there and mark the graves of the people who were actually at the, it wasn't a battle, but who went
Skirmish?
to
The raid?
the raid at Fort Constitution.
Fort William and Mary.
Right. Some people get upset if you call it William and Mary, but that's where they're going. So after that, we have not heard from anybody about what important person in their life is buried there to... Oh, do we know anything more about Dinah Whipple?
No, not, Seacoast Memorials has not gotten back to me. Like 3 weeks ago, they said they were going to pick up the stone in Vermont, and I've been following up, so I'm just going to drive down there tomorrow. Try to get
And their family, the family members that started that, along with Valerie Cunningham, who is a big promoter of the Black Heritage Trail and got a lot of things started. Once the stone is actually in place, next spring sometime, we'll do a dedication at that time.
Right.
But nobody else wants to come in and do ceremonies at North right now, so. Union Cemetery headstone cleaning, next.
Sunday.
What? Wednesday, right?
Oh,
We're gonna do
I
it
had the
in the
wrong
week.
date then.
During the week. 'Cause
The 9th, right?
Yeah, let me double check. Yes, Wednesday the 9th. And one of the reasons that we picked that day, because the water truck is going to come, and a few of the people from the city yard can come too, and we're going to do the pressure washing. But there are other things that can be done too, as much as just simply spraying and those kinds of things.
We're going to focus on the larger, taller ones, right, because of the pressure washer.
Right, right. 8 to noon. I know. It's hard. I know. I sent out an invitation to the DAR because on the 11th of October is National DAR Volunteer Day. So I'm hoping some of the ladies from there can at least come and spray headstones and things like that as a national event. I know, I mean...
Get that banner by then, we can hang the banner up.
Suzanne has objected to hanging up any banners, so in the past I've asked a number of times. And
Even by the fence?
Well, we've got those, little A-frames we put out.
Yeah, we can put
Headstone cleaning
definitely-
in progress. We could put those out on the sidewalk.
Definitely,
I'll bring all that stuff.
yeah. Yeah, no banners right now, so we haven't asked her about banners for, but that's all right, we'll get there someday. So that's going on, and just forethought, when we get into the spring, I'm thinking that this would be a good year to go back through, and it will be much easier, and spray headstones and just spray them. So, and we can bring a little scraper too, because I've been in all the cemeteries looking to see what needs to be done, and overall, all the headstones look pretty good.
Yep.
There are only a few here and there that have greened up or whatever, because where they're located. So I was at an event, the ringing of the bells, and people were talking about cleaning their headstones in Exeter and Kittery and places like that, and that's what a lot of them have just been doing, is just spraying and walking away, not even putting the effort in that we did. So so there'll be lots of Saturdays and what have you that people who work during the week can come up and
Early evening, when it's not super hot in the summer.
If we had water, it would.
Next week will be perfect. It's not going to be hot at all.
I have a regular
Do you have to-
government job.
I know the feeling. I just get to go the
Well,
headstone
no, that's
cleanings
true.
for
What you're
my.
saying about just spraying, we could.
Could do a weekend or an evening.
I'm
or
saying
an
like
evening.
Thursday, Fridays from like 4 to 6 when it's still light out. It's a great time. People are off of work. I mean, I'm out of town a lot of times on Saturdays, so it's just I can't come to those, and I want to, but
Yeah. We'll try.
Gone.
We'll try to do a special, and 100 people better come.
So it's it's real hot for someone as fair as me in the summertime at like noon.
Well, it was really too hot this summer to do much of anything in the cemeteries, any kind. And just the spraying is not going to, you're not going to be generating a lot of heat for yourself by scrubbing and everything. So, and we don't need water for that. So that certainly is something possible to do in the future. Even because some of our dedicated volunteers, towards the end couldn't come for various family reasons on weekends and stuff like that. It's just tough, and everybody wants volunteers. So.
If you have kids, they don't want to go to the cemetery and watch you clean stones.
Well, that's a case where we probably could finally contact the school district, because there are community projects. Some of them came to some of our cleanings. I didn't want them there after, because they really didn't. They just sort of played around, and once they left it was
4 to 6 thing.
yeah.
Kids could come if you're just spraying. They could run around
Yeah.
wild. That's not a very
But if the high school kids were just coming and spraying down everything that we certainly could probably get a lot of kids to do that. Be coerced from their school to. These are easy community hours, because everybody now needs, 40 or 60 hours of community work service before they can supposedly graduate. One of my grandsons, he helped me down at North Cemetery, so I had to sign a form and said yes, he helped. So, and I didn't fudge it either.
There is a new submarine that just came in for overhaul, and maybe some of the sailors in there,
Well,
because I know through the Elks, they probably already have a contact with them.
I have a direct contact to the actual person who's actually in charge of that. Like everything else, contact it, they'll do this, they'll do that. Well, it took a while, but there are only certain people. It's not open to everybody that's in the Navy, and it's for people who, for whatever reason, they need to do community service. And so it's only open through the chaplain over there. I had a long talk with him. And it's up to them whether they want to come or not. And we're not talking about a lot of people. We're talking maybe 1 or 2 people at a time. I'm not dismissing that, but at first I thought it was, we'll call and we'll get 10 people for a Saturday. It doesn't work that way. So
It's 120 plus people in a submarine, and when it's an overhaul, it's on dry dock like that, they are not engaged in doing what they their
on the
regular
ship.
job. So it's like they get plugged in many other different areas.
yeah.
So community, I mean, they probably can get talked into it. So, but I understand that position.
Well, and it was actually through the Elks when we did the big Elks event over there. When I was an Elk, that's how I found out who really was, because Stephanie gave me a name of a person, and I talked to him, and he goes, "No, I don't have anything to do with this. You have to go. There's somebody else." So that day, the chaplain was there, and we spent a good half hour talking about it, and. He made it really clear that, and I'm not saying that it couldn't happen, but they all have different duties and they work 3 shifts. So it's not that easy to, get like 5 people or 10 people. It takes a lot of coordination on their end because they have to contact all the subs and see who's ahead of the sub for a while they're in port. Then he can make suggestions of who he thinks would be okay to do that. So it's not, they don't just put it out to them. So, I get so excited.
To the Portsmouth, is it Portsmouth Women's Club or the Seacoast Women's Club? Is it Middle?
Yeah.
It's Middle Street, next to the Sonic Lodge.
Yeah.
Women's City Club?
Yeah, for volunteers.
I don't, Sue would know that better than me.
Yeah, they do other projects, especially this time of year.
Yeah, book club
Mostly,
and the coat drive.
Head
and-
Start, Coat Drive, Party with a Purpose for people in need in December. So they do a lot of that kind of.
And most of our projects are work projects too. So that also puts a kink in it. I mean, that's how I look at it, that no, not everybody can come out and even walk a cemetery and spray. I mean, the young kids can, but I don't know. Anybody comes up with some other ideas. I have the name of the person to call up at Brentwood, and as soon as we decide what a next person will be. But then again, I think we have to make sure it's a project that doesn't have any tools, dangerous tools involved in it. So I'm not, like, can you come out and cut down all these things with the saw? And I don't know, but I want to make sure. Dee and Eva and I sat down before this meeting and came up with a list of projects for each cemetery, which, we'll get typed up and then send them out or have it for the next meeting so we can look over. If anybody comes across a person that says, "Oh, I'm looking for something to do," or whatever, you'll know the different things. But they're all work related. They're not construction, but they're
There's
work.
a sense of labor to them.
Yeah, sense of labor to them. So, but I mean, we've gotten a lot done. So, with the volunteers we've had and moving forward, and Michael and Steve are going to get all of Cotton Cemetery done before the snow flies, straightening up. Anybody else have any suggestions or questions? Okay, and establish rules for our cemeteries. Suzanne brought this up, and I didn't bring it up last time. I'm not exactly sure what that means. The only thing we have is you can't dig up remains and you can't
Well,
steal headstones, but.
It's been closed, dusk to dawn, dogs on leashes, no digging.
Oh, I mean, it is now, but I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said, I don't know what that means.
I mean, we kind of already have done that, right? With that sign that we
We've
made.
posted them, right.
North.
But we need something in writing, it's sort of like guidelines, because for a while when we were getting all the asks about putting plaques and everything and doing events, it was like, oh, maybe we should decide what people, or have guidelines for those kinds of events, because this big event for the SAR has to go through the city, and there was a group call, and the fire department, and this and that, and everybody had to approve it, and so it's not
So
just a
sorry, I didn't mean to talk
No.
over. Is she looking for something written down, or?
Yeah, it would
Okay.
go someplace. I mean, is it in the charter or not the charter, but don't we have a separate thing that lists the different things you can do, like RSAs, but we don't call them RSAs? I'm not sure.
I mean, there are ordinances. but
Right, ordinances.
It wouldn't be an ordinance. Probably just a set of guidelines, don't remove stones, plaques, things like that. I'm not sure.
Or
what the
if you
rules-
want to,
Maybe it's supposed to go on the website under cemeteries. So
Right.
if people are looking up, they kind of get a general idea how to behave in a cemetery. I don't know if that's what she's getting at.
Is it a bylaw?
no,
I don't think so.
I remember us talking about this when we were approached by the Whipples,
yeah.
and then another family too. It was another family, and
Oh, okay, so like,
when we get approached by a family,
Okay.
how do we go about approving?
so if you're, so for example, it might be, if you want to put a plaque in a cemetery, this is the process.
Right,
you
or a
have to go
headstone.
through, Or a headstone, or,
Yeah.
okay, stuff like that, gotcha.
I think I remember us talking about it.
Yeah, it was quite a while ago that we did. 'Cause she said maybe we should
Probably-
contact other cemeteries or cities and find out what they have on their sites regarding their cemeteries and things like that, so.
Yeah.
Could be something as simple as, all requests for markers, memorials, and so forth are to be submitted
To
before the
DPW.
cemetery committee. Yeah.
The DPW.
To Corin at the DPW. Or just must be presented
Yeah.
to the cemetery committee for approval or for discussion, whatever that
Yeah.
is. That could be that
Yeah.
broad
Yeah.
of a rule, right?
Yeah,
You should make like an exclusion like this doesn't include things like flowers or, like small tokens that people leave at graves.
we don't have that so much because all of our cemeteries are historical, so.
But
We're
people
more-
might still want to leave flowers, and
Well,
that's
no,
something that's
yeah.
acceptable, right?
Yeah.
So having something
Yeah.
under that.
Just in case.
Saying, this does not include small tokens like flowers.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because up in Cotton, there is a family that puts out a lot of little things for their
Tchotchke.
family. Yeah.
What about alcohol?
Well, I
Is
think
that
that falls
typically
under,
banned?
I think that falls under, law.
Public.
It's public drinking,
Okay.
and it's a public space, so I don't think we need rules like that. I think that's probably getting more at, like I said, some generic, any services, remembrances, memorial plaques, things that affix to things, all must go through the cemetery committee, that kind of thing. So if somebody's looking to have an event, or
Right.
they want to put a special marker, you can't just go in and, if everybody was doing
Throw up a sign.
right, so that needs to get approved. But all the other stuff is probably pretty normal cemetery etiquette. I mean,
Even
dusk to
just
dawn.
general park etiquette, if you've ever been in a park.
Right.
You're not having a bottle of wine, just like,
What are the general rules about putting things at graves for like flowers or little pots or?
I know that the Catholic cemetery out at the Plains are rewriting their restrictions on flowers, and it's just become such a,
Right, because people don't pick it up. Yeah, so it's trash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
Maybe in historical cemeteries, we don't want that,
I wouldn't encourage it.
right? We would say no temporary,
yeah.
things like that.
I agree with, and it's getting to the point now too. There are so many flags, different size flags in North Cemetery. I almost want to see no flags.
I agree. I think it takes away
I
from the
have
beauty
brought
of the
home-
cemetery.
I have brought home this summer 5 flags that were so torn up and ratty from being out in the weather all the
The ones
time.
that I have in my trunk?
Oh, you have some in your
Flags on
Patterned, yeah.
Yeah, and I have too, and
A couple up today.
a couple of them I found after a windstorm in the middle of of the cemetery. They're not even with the grave anymore.
It just doesn't feel right for me just to throw them in the garbage.
Well, Corin said now we can just,
Well, that's,
Gotta burn 'em.
so they don't burn flags anymore because they're
Yeah.
plastic, basically.
Oh, right, they're not
So
fabric.
the protocol is to cut the stars off from the stripes, and it's no longer a US flag, and then you separate the two and dispose of them separately in their own bag.
But these are so weathered. They're really like,
No, the ones on the sticks are different because those are cotton
Veterans typically, right?
or veterans. But I'm just saying, what you're
Oh,
referring
yeah.
to is like disposal of a flag you'd find on a flagpole.
right, but that's why I wanted to let her know that, I mean,
But
it's
same
okay
idea,
to
probably
separate.
for an American flag of any size. If you're throwing it in the trash, you would cut the stars from the stripes. put them in separate
On the
trash
big ones,
cans.
yeah, but the small ones, it's like, but I just
Well,
don't like seeing them lying in the ground and the veteran in me, you know?
Well, maybe that's, you make a rule, like no unauthorized plastic flowers, flags. It's kind of hard to stop people from coming in on a Memorial Day weekend and putting a
Well,
Marine
I was
flag
going
in
to
front of
say,
Yeah.
I was going to
With
say.
the exception of, you could have, sorry.
Right. No, go ahead.
In the exception of on these, remembrance weekends or weeks.
Yeah, maybe we just need to get better when we're mowing them, just to say, we're going to get rid of them. Right.
What about the wreaths?
Instead of
What about
leaving
the
them,
wreaths?
because I think the crew
At
doesn't want
North
to offend
Cemetery,
anybody.
I picked up all the wreaths and piled them down back, and Corin sent, actually somebody, you saw him before I called you, but I was the one finally that went down through. And I mean, in the Elks, I was part of putting them in, and people like to decorate the headstones no matter how old they are, but they don't like to come back and take care of them, because you had to get all yours out of the cemeteries up there, yeah.
Do they have to get approval before putting the wreaths in?
No, no one's ever.
Maybe I just need to educate the crew and say, hey, when you're mowing, if it's faded, get rid of it. If it looks new, leave it. If you get there the next week or 2 weeks later and it's faded or fallen on the ground, get rid of the thing.
Yeah.
Because they often don't touch anything because they didn't put it there.
Right.
They don't know who put it there. They don't want to offend people, and then next thing you know, it's. But we could just say we're going to do that,
Yeah.
and that kind of opens the door to. Right? I mean, that's probably what you guys do, right? You see some old stuff and you say, oh, well, that's gone.
And the other thing too is they're popping up on headstones. I believe that they're revolutionary people, or that we do have a couple of Civil War people in one of the cemeteries, but like just place, I don't know, because in most people's minds, the flag means that it's on a veteran's spot, but then all of a sudden people are going through putting other flags in. I don't know. It just might give the wrong message. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you
Where
can have a
are-
rule that says any markers, flags, flowers are subject to be removed by the Department of Public Works at any time. So put your stuff there, but just know we might take it out. I think it's appropriate. I don't know.
Does somebody want to take on?
I'll take that on. I'll just do some research and see if there's other
Yeah.
committees or cities that
Yeah.
have
I
that
bet if
kind
you
of.
just Googled cemetery
Yeah, that's what I'm
guidelines, you'd
thinking.
come up with a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff.
Because the other thing about getting
Yeah.
that fence and all the debris down, it's going to open up that cemetery even more. So hopefully there'll be less destruction in there, because when the police go by, they're going to be able to see much further in there. And we can ask them again to keep a better eye. And also coming down, once the bridge is open, how long is that going to take, Woodbury?
Till November, at
Maplewood.
least, right?
Yeah.
So thank God I'm not involved with road.
Thank goodness.
I think the aim is to have that open for winter.
Well, that's what I thought. I mean, it's not like a
I want to
2-year.
say mid-November.
That's what they published last year.
I mean, it's not a 2-year project. Or
No.
no, that's what.
I don't think it's going to be finished. It'll be ready for winter, and then they'll come back, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because now that the
Because
wall
they
was,
redid the inlet, right?
the inlet, yeah, isn't that?
They're working on that now.
Yeah.
Because coming down from Maplewood, now you can see right into the back of the cemetery. Because we cut down all those bushes and everything that was a barrier. So when the bridge is open again, come down this way, look over, and you can see through to the back. So hopefully has been some destruction this summer, but I don't know how you ever stop that. So, the other thing, we're going to pick up headstone pieces. The lady sent back a fragment of a small headstone, John Ward Gurley, and he does belong in North Cemetery. However, I located the spot, and there's nothing. There's an old piece of rock or something. There's nothing to attach it to, and I think something else that we sort of need to decide in North Cemetery. Steve and Mike have been, if the headstone's already been down and it is down, they've just been leaving it in the ground and outlining it with some gravel and then with some bricks around the outside of it, which is a pretty standard procedure. I don't know if we want to start that up in North Cemetery. I'm not sure.
How many
I
down
wouldn't
headstones?
recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Once the weeds come up through those bricks,
Yeah.
there's no way.
Well,
they can
that's, yeah.
I like what you're proposing, Sue.
So,
leave it flat.
How many down headstones are you talking in
Well,
North?
you're talking about rounding up all of the broken fragments and storing them.
the
in
ones,
a-
yeah, we have, because he came and looked, and where are we going to put this? Because there are headstones up against a tree in Cotton that have just been there, which amazes me that someone hasn't taken them. And then there are behind, when you come into North where the sign is, behind all those bushes, there's 4 or 5 headstones that have been there ever since I've been going there. And now there are quite a few more that have been knocked over recently. They're not buried in the ground. If it's buried in the ground, we're just going to leave it there. So we were thinking that in one of the double door tombs at Cotton, there's a lot of space in there that when we take them out, we'll mark them where they came from and stack them in there until the time comes that we can actually have some money and get things repaired. But any that are not already half buried in the ground, just get them out of there. So there's none at Point of Graves, there's none at Pleasant, and there aren't any in Union. It's just North and Cotton that have.
What, is Wentworth good? Is there no?
Yeah, that's Pleasant Street.
Oh,
yeah.
Pleasant, yeah.
Yeah. I was just down there visiting my
great.
grandparents, so that's it. I wasn't visiting them. I visited them while I was looking to see what was going on. So I'm going to go with a couple of the guys. I can't go the 11th. I have to pick a date next week, the 10th maybe. I've got the grandkids on the 11th, so I could bring them along, but I've been afraid they'd try to lift a headstone.
Not on the 11th.
No, yeah, the 10th is fine if we can do it. And it should only take, the morning to do that, because with the 2 guy employees, there are none that are too heavy that 2 people couldn't handle them and put them in the back of the city truck. So to secure them and mark them and save them for whoever going down the line. So I don't think there's I don't have anything else. I did not contact anybody about putting a crosswalk at to South Street, because so many people do cross and go over there.
You probably want to bring that to Traffic and Safety
That's what I thought.
Committee.
Okay.
Yep.
Are we on other business? I must have been daydreaming.
Oh,
Kinda.
no, that's what we're doing right now.
Yes.
That's sort of what we're doing right now.
So
I can bring that to traffic. Yeah, the crosswalk.
I agree with you, because that's my route of path.
Yeah, it's probably because if you take that right onto South Street from Sagamore, it might be too soon to put in like a crosswalk and be a safety issue.
With Little Harbor right there, you'd think they would jump at the chance to put in more crosswalks.
Yeah.
Well, what you guys know, when you come up Richards Ave, I think if on the Griffin side of the street, you put one right there, it brings you to the dirt right next to the gate, which would be, but I go down there all the time. That's my regular route. And there's so many times I've stopped for people, walkers that could get out of the cemetery or even trying to get in. So,
It's
I know.
much nicer walking down Richards Ave than it is walking down Miller Ave or Sagamore Ave or any other way.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
not going to come from, unless you're coming up South Street. You still got to cross.
Yeah.
You're not going to be over by Cloud Field. You're going to be on the other side of the road.
right. And
It does make sense. They are close, though. The Cloud Field and then the one on South Street.
There, I mean, it's basically a desire path. You know, people do it because it's the easiest thing, even if there are other options.
Right.
So
I have seen, you know, the kids leaving Little Harbor, they have to cross Miller Ave, so they can't get any other way. They have to, you know, they're coming
Yeah,
down
they-
South Street, they cross Miller, because there's a crosswalk there, and then cross Sagamore.
Yeah,
You know,
they're
so
zigzagging.
just,
Yeah, I mean,
Seems like-
it is sort of the cemetery thing, because people are going in and out of all those cemeteries.
it's a high
out there.
traffic area.
Yeah. And what was the other
Okay,
thing?
sorry, Eva.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just wanted to add that when Sue mentioned that we were making a list of projects, it's really for all of you to help prioritize so that then some grant writing can be done to get some money. So when we all see it, we can, you know, synthesize down to what we all think is the most important. And I won't be here next month, so no fighting. I'm
Also,
going to Arizona.
can you explain about the,
The charitable trust.
right, you,
I've been in touch with them and also had a good talk with Suzanne Woodland, and so we are on their portal now. They made us a sub. Hold on, I did bring my notes because I want to get it right. We're a sub-organization of the city, but in being that way, we can use the city portal, and that's really that. Well, it's more like a formality. We would still need to do the grant writing and that sort of thing, but our conduit is through the city, and anything that in connection with that. Any grant that we write, they would want to look at, and of course, I don't blame them. And the city has received some small grants from them already. We can get $30,000 over a 2-year period, and they usually give it as 15 and 15. But so that, you know, you could do a big thing or a lot of little things, but when you see the list, you know, you might have some ideas on the direction we should take.
right, yeah, that's why we got together to, just to decide what projects are out there. So going
lot of
forward,
them.
when we get ready to start writing grants, we can pick and choose as a group what needs to be done.
Yeah.
So, and we are a certified local government. They will help us write grants. They sent me, 25 pages of information, which I've not read, but it will be winter reading again. Most of these will be applied for in.
Most of my cleaning is in that category. Winter
You'll get to it.
Yeah, and one of the things is an obstacle is most of the grants, I can't speak for charitable, but the parks and other ones are all matching grants. So that could end up being a stumbling block, or, you know, something to overcome to get. So the Moose Plate was the only one in the state that you could just get it because it was $20,000 and you didn't have to match it. So the next one up, you can get up to $150,000, but you have to have matching funds. So we're just going to keep researching because most of these projects are fairly substantial projects. I mean, the city is not, I'll be dead by the time we straighten up all the headstones, so unless something changes, you know. And again, going back to what our mission was, is to, you know, clean these up, preserve them and everything, and get them to the point that going forward, that the city, no matter who's here, if a headstone is tilting or whatever, they can go in an hour and clean it, you know, straighten it up themselves. But right now, they're in such tough shape that.
You know, the the old historical cemeteries in Boston, the old Granary Cemetery, and they have a couple of other societies. I wonder if you go on their website, they probably have some organizations that are helping them fund.
I actually did some of that. And one of the things I learned is how geographically targeted many of these. I like your idea, and I would always pursue it. And I really thought I had one called Jane's Trust, but they're very geographically specific. And so in my mind, one of the things I'm looking at now is not just historical preservation, but environmental, because so many of our cemeteries are near water. And so that's an avenue. But I like what you're saying. I did think about it. I haven't given up on it, but anything I've seen says, like, for the city of Boston or for the town of Newton, or even some here there were some, I thought, this is it, but they would say, this is only for Littleton, New Hampshire, or
So they're
things
very
like that.
targeted.
They're very targeted.
To a particular,
Yes.
location
Right,
and cause.
right. But not all of them. So, but the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation is really an umbrella organization, and they've got dozens of grants under that umbrella. And we don't even have say, well, send it to this grant, this organization. They do that. They must be pretty powerful, and they've got a heck of a lot of money too. Wish they'd share more of it with us, but
And just one quick thing, when I was online today, the next controversy, I don't know if it will be, a professor just wrote a new book just coming out, and I might actually pay money for it. I think it says the North didn't win the revolution for the country. So I read the biography on everything, and it says everybody gives us up north, the New England's credit for the American Revolution and that we started the country. Well, this guy lives in Virginia and's come up with all these things saying that's not true. So George Washington did not deserve the credit that he got. So who knows how that will impact.
I'd like to read that book.
Yeah, well, it's about time. Everybody's questioning everything, so
Yeah,
it just popped up
Well,
in my
every so
feed.
often, they just take information and they throw it out like a grenade.
Yeah.
And they just kind of, the Battle of
Yeah.
Kings Mountain, I think it happened in what is now West Virginia, that area there. And that was like the turning point
Yeah, yeah.
of the Revolutionary War, because the British have won X amount, the Americans have won just about the same, so it was kind of a stalemate. And then there was that battle of Kings Mountain.
Yeah,
And
I
that
think he
kind
alluded
of
to that.
changed things,
Yeah.
changed the dynamics enough that then we moved forward and we just won battle after battle after battle.
Yeah, and it was the people of the South that did it, according to him.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, I just thought that's very
No, I
interesting. That's the
started
first time. Who would like to,
Motion to adjourn?
and second, who seconded it? You have to say it out loud, so.
Second.
Peter.
I did second.
All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you.